The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
When the angel had departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Rise, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt and stay there until I tell you. Herod is going to search for the child to destroy him." Joseph rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed for Egypt. He stayed there until the death of Herod, that when the Lord had said through the prophet might be fulfilled, "Out of Egypt I called my son." When Herod realized that he had been deceived by the Magi, he became furious. He ordered the massacre of all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity, 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had ascertained from the Magi. Then was fulfilled what had been said through Jeremiah the prophet. A voice was heard in Ramah, sobbing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children, and she would not be consoled, since they were no more. Friends, sisters, and brothers, the Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Please be seated.
You are going to be forewarned. Pagka ho kasi niños inocentes, marami nagbibiro. In other words, you may become a victim of a scam. Uutang sa inyo ang isang tao, hindi na kayo babayaran. Kayo ay na niños inocentes. Kadalasan kasi nawawala sa ating isip ang mga bagay-bagay na yan. In other words, this day is being celebrated in so many ways. Kagaya natin, tayo nagmimisa, pero pagkalabas natin, maaring may magbibiro sa atin at tayo uutangan para tayo mabiktima. But today, itong mga araw na ito, last week of December, I think we have the propensity to look back sa ating nakaraan. Kung ano man yung nakaraan na yan, maaring matamis, maaring mapait. At sa ating ebanghelyo, there are two characters, yung evangelist na si Matthew at si Joseph, and of course, the mothers of the Holy Innocents. Paano kaya sila naka-move forward sa kanilang nakaraan? Joseph, for his part, had every reason to think that he could never, that this thing that is happening to him, simula pa nung nalaman niya na nagdadalang tao si Maria kay Jesus. Di ba? All the things that people were talking about na even if Mary was engaged to him, pero nabuntis na siya. So in other words, kahit sa ating kapanahunan ngayon, that is not easy to take. And yet, there is one thing that allowed Joseph to move forward into the future. Ano yun? The promise of God. As we move into this new year, 2025, and how we journey with Matthew in this gospel, we look in two directions. First, we look back to the promise of God. Kaya nga si Jose, ang kanya experience, naka-encounter siya palagi sa kanyang panaginip ng anghel giving him directions. Sinasabi sa kanya, not in so many words, you are blessed to be a blessing. Then we look forward to the promise of God that God will make all things new. Kung ano man ang ating nakaraan, kung ano man ang nangyari sa 2024, there is always a promise. Di po ba? Just try to look back sa 2024. Marami rin tayong blessings. Kahit sabihin natin may mga ups and downs tayo. The faithfulness of God in the past and the promise of God's future shapes or molds our present. And today, it does not matter what happened in the recent past of our lives. Kahit nga yung mga holy innocents at yung mga nanay, di ba? Maiisip natin, it was a very tragic incident sa kanilang buhay. Imagine, hahablutin sa inyo yung inyong bunso at papatayin sa inyong harap. That is very traumatic. Some people cannot even recover from that experience. But God's mercy is new every morning. There is always a fresh start in our lives. Just try to recall, di ba? Parang kapag tayo ay merong na-encounter na medyo masaklap, di ba? Mahirap tanggapin, masakit. Lahat ng adjectives na negative pwede natin gamitin. But somehow, through the grace and mercy of God, we are able to move forward, even just an inch. Si Matthew, yung ating evangelist for today, was a tax collector. Alam naman natin ang tax collector, di ba? In other words, there was an element of shame in his life, and yet the Lord called him, "Come, follow me." And he became a follower, a disciple of Jesus. Kinalimutan niya yung mga sinasabi ng tao sa kanya. Joseph moved into the future with the disgrace hanging around him, and he was able to rise above it because he believed that he was doing what God had asked him to do. Through the words of the angel, rise and take the mother and her child to Egypt. Today, we are all invited to engage in this journey through the Gospel of Matthew as we remember the promise of God that we are blessed to be a blessing. And this will show us how Jesus made it clear what God's blessing is all about. Not just words, not just sinabi, but how to live it. So wag nating kakalimutan the promise of God in the past and the promise of God's future shapes our present lives.